Hello and welcome to a very, very special effort. We all talk about Panchatattva. So those are the five elements that make us. Those are the five elements that make all of us. And the entire cosmic universe and the energies around us are somewhere related to these five elements. But these five elements are also, are something that we need to preserve. We talk about water, we talk about air, we talk about land, everything. Unless we conserve, unless we preserve, and unless we focus on our development, while keeping into our conscious mind the well-being of these five elements around us, we will not have humanity, we will not have civilization, society, and the earth as we know us. So sustainability and sustainable development is a cause that needs to get into our conscience um, sooner the better. And we're talking about sustainable development goals. And these are objectives that have been set across by nations, leaders of various nations, for the world to follow so that we continue to see and know the earth as we do as now. But one of the other efforts is that how do we plan our own individual development as organization, as people, so that this is sustained over a period of time, sustainability 100 years, and how can we make sustainability a reality? Let's talk about this in detail with a very, very august panel. We will have the Honorable Minister for Jal Shakti in the Union Government, that is Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, joining us in just a bit. He's going to be speaking to us at length on what's being done towards conservation, preservation, and of course, making water available to all and sustainability from that point of view. But I'd also like to say hello and welcome to some people who are not only thought leaders, but who've been actively involved and engaged in this process of making sustainability a reality. They are Mirza, actor, producer, but more importantly, the UN Environment Goodwill Ambassador, and also one of the UN Secretary General's SDGs advocate for sustainable development goals. They are fantastic. Whenever we talk about climate, weather, water, and you're there as a champion, it's always great to engage with you and good to have you with us here on this panel when we're going to trying to talk about making sustainability a reality. But I'd also like to say hello to Abhishek Bansal, Head of Sustainability at Arvind, Anirban Ghosh, CSO of the Mahindra Group, Arvind Bodankar, CSO of Ultratech Cement, Dr. Sura Naresh Kumar, Professor Environmental Sciences and at ICAR, and of course Ashwin Kak, Associate Director Sustainability and Agro Transformation at ABN Bev India. ABN Bev is also partnering with us in this entire effort, putting this entire discussion together, bringing it into a special plane. Let me start with you, Thea. You're somebody who feels very strongly about it. And why don't you set the stage for us to tell us how can we make sustainability a reality?
I want to start with saying thank you so much for having this conversation. It is, I think, the most important conversation of the century. It's one that will define our future and our present. And this is a very august panel, so it's my privilege to be a part of this. I think when we speak of the Sustainable Development Goals, it's important to recognize that the Earth has finite resources. And unfortunately, because of human behavior and the way we have industrialized and are building economies and the way we're living, we've altered 75% of the Earth's surface, which essentially means that we've caused huge imbalances and disruptions that in turn have led to, of course, climatic shifts and drastic climate change. But alongside that, what it also does is causes the kind of the has caused the kind of pandemic that we have collectively experienced with COVID-19 and continue to. Many scientists also indicate that most diseases emerging will be zoonotic in nature, which means we will be getting them from wildlife and animals because of this disruption and these alterations that we've caused in the natural world. So, when we speak of sustainability, I think what is paramount for all of us to understand over everything else is that this is a question of our survival, but not just a question of our human survival. It's the question of peace, equality, justice, health, and progress. So there cannot be progress without sustainability now.
mm,
And of course, we all know that the world came together to fight, many countries came together, while many countries were still denying climate change, to sign the Paris Agreement and adopt the Sustainable Development Goals that would act as a perfect roadmap for all industries, individuals, and every person who is, of course, wanting to do anything on this planet,
yeah.
uh, to create a better life for everyone. And I
Mm,
think what's very important for us to understand is that the Sustainable Development Goals are not some distinct, um, blueprint. They are tangible, they're accessible, they're scientific in nature, they're very well understood and studied and read through. And these are goals that can be not just adopted by industries, that need to be adopted by industries and governments, but can be adopted by individuals.
mm.
And that to me means that this is going to make the goals more likely to succeed, because they're accessible to me, to you, and that is what will make all the difference.
But you know what? There is this argument, this larger argument there. I'm just taking this, and then I'll take it forward to through the to the rest of the panelists. That there are other nations who are now there in the top 10 on the SDG rankings and the indexes, who are a classic case of सौ चूहे खाकर बिल्ली हज को चली, or कि भाई हम तो कर लिया अब तुम नहीं कर सकते, because they are saying that these are nations which went through this entire process of abusing the environment, going through this entire process, and now they are stopping all the developed, quasi-developed nations, especially nations like India, which are getting into that phase where these nations have already passed about 25, 30 years ago. So the hole in the ozone is not over Australia as a continent. It's not India's fault. It's because of the emissions that came from the from nations like America and also countries like in the Europe. So why should India not get a chance to go through that growth cycle, which the others call the industrial revolution?
Because
So why are you thrusting it upon us? So how do you react to that?
because India is capable of revolutionizing the way economies are developed. We have
Hmm.
the resources, we have the skill, we have the
Wow.
innovation, the science, and more than anything else, we are an ancient civilization that understands better than most other civilizations across the planet that our entire existence is entirely dependent on nature and the natural world, and our solutions to most of our problems exist in nature.
Hmm.
And it's a deplorable argument to say that there are parts of the world that have caused devastation and destruction, but we are facing the impact of it.
Hmm.
79.5 billion dollars in losses is what we incurred as a country since 2000
Hmm.
because of climate change. Now,
Hmm.
I agree with the Secretary General when he calls to first developed
Hmm.
nations to contribute the promised amount of money to developing nations like
Hmm.
India to help us strengthen our efforts to mobilize sustainability and alternative and renewable energy. There's a lot of money that has been promised, and these countries should be sending this
Hmm.
money towards us. But that aside, I think India has already in many ways displayed
Hmm.
that we are capable of making the transitions. We've already doubled our renewables target by 450 gigawatts.
Yes.
We were responsible for putting together the International Solar Alliance and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. We're leading the conversation on many things, and I think we are perfectly capable of proving to the world that when there is intention and understanding backed with science and knowledge, we are capable of changing.
Hmm.
And we have to, because we don't have a choice.
Hmm. True,
So,
and I think we can make the better choice. I just feel
right, Anand, it's as simple as that.
no.
If it's air
True.
pollution or our natural water resources getting diminishing, or practically every aspect connected to climate change that is causing disruption and a crisis affects
Hmm.
every one of us. And we are the world's second largest population. We're dependent on a stable climate and a
Yep.
strong natural resource to take us forward. So it's on us to fix this and be
True,
a
not
part of.
just on. Yeah, that's another way, and perhaps the right way of looking at it too. Because yes, why should we do it the same way that they did? And if they did it all wrong, we can get it right. They spent $350 million to make gravity. We spent $350 million to put Mangalyaan. So that's what we do. So or
As
get the
you
project
the country who are trapping as
do. So or get the project.
the country who are trapping as atmosphere with carbon and converting it into energy and using it as a resource. And we've got brilliant people in our country who are doing brilliant work. So we can change the course of development, and the
Mm,
kind of economy and the idea of progress can completely be transformed by countries like India, so
mm.
long as we can work in partnership. So people and government will have to work together.
True, very well said. And let me just take this across to Abhishek. Would you want to take it forward? How can we make sustainability a reality? Should we go by the goals set by the world, or should we set our own goals?
Sure. Thanks, Anand, and a wonderful discussion, Dia. So, just to come back on the previous point, I think there is a globally accepted principle of common but differentiated responsibility (CBDR). So, what this means is that all states are equally responsible for addressing the disasters like climate change or any environmental destruction, but we are not equally responsible for creating these. So there's a response. So there's a differentiation in terms of action that in each individual state would take based on their historic sort of emissions or historic destruction. So that's well accepted, and also it's been discussed in the context of climate change. So I fully agree with you, Anand, that each state should also take actions which are aligned with their historic sort of
Hmm.
influence on creating different issues. But also fully agree that India is in a great position to not taking the same path. So if you look at per capita emissions of India or per capita consumption of different resources in India, we are still way below what it is in the developed world.
Yeah.
And in terms of our footprint as a country, we are still, if you look at, we are still able to sustain our footprint within the limits of Earth regeneration capacity within a year. So we have not still exceeded our budget of environmental allowances if you look at more broadly. However, there is a great possibility to further reduce or to say to improve economically, but to not cause any environmental destruction as has happened in the past world over. And I think the lead we are taking on renewable energy, the lead we are taking on water conservation and management, and sustainable agriculture. I mean, sustainable agriculture has a great potential. So our soils,
Hmm.
our agriculture soils have capacity to absorb more carbon than we emit, provided if we adopt the regenerative agriculture practices. And a lot of
Hmm.
those practices have traditionally been accepted or being implemented in India. And same can be extended, and we don't go extensive chemical farming way, which has been done in the West, and we continue on the regenerative agriculture pathway. Renewable energy, we still have energy poverty in many parts of India, but how can we meet that energy need just by
Hmm.
going to renewable energy instead of building more coal-based power plants? Same as
Hmm.
we are looking at water. You might be surprised to know the amount of water, focus on water, which Indian industry has. So amount of water recycling that happens in India
Yeah.
doesn't happen even in the Western geographies. India is the market for the leading water recycling technologies in the world. They have bigger market share in India than they have in some of the other geographies. So
Hmm.
some of these things I think we are doing right. There's a potential to improve on the waste management side. So all the recycling infrastructure, the collection infrastructure that needs to be in place in our cities, I think that is fairly lacking, and
Hmm.
we can build a lot on that. There's a potential for air quality, so we know how big a topic air
Right.
quality is. So we'll not go in detail, but there's a vast potential of improving the air quality in our cities and do so
Hmm.
collectively.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the aspects which stands out, and these are my learnings, that traditionally I didn't know till until recently that the cow dung cakes which were used in in the households, they actually don't emit carbon dioxide. They actually emit oxygen. And I was shocked when somebody told me this. I said, I don't understand. I said, how did they figure? I said, no, that's the reason why the villages, they use cow dung cakes, because these cakes actually don't emit carbon. They emit oxygen. I didn't know that. So these are things which perhaps, like they are said, that this is civilizational knowledge that's been passed on. But we are also not living in an isolated society. We are living in a society which is influenced by multiple cultures, and a lot of the influences that are coming abroad today. We are getting into a position where somehow I feel individually we need to understand what our carbon print is, and we need to get a little more conscious about that as at an individual level. So let me just take this forward to somebody who represents a company which is already doing something at this level. Anirban, the Mahindra Group has certain incentives and initiatives taken to try and get their employees and encourage their employees in their various divisions to be conscious of this very aspect.
Yes, Anand, we certainly do. The program is called Make Sustainability Personal, and it's rooted in the realization that future opportunities don't lie in older technologies, and this is not a zero-sum game. Each one of us can contribute. So we encourage all our colleagues to adopt the newer technologies because they will save money and they will save the planet at the same time. So more than 30,000 of our colleagues have adopted LED lamps for their houses. Many have bought energy efficient air conditioners, energy efficient fans, aerators for their taps. So it's a fairly large program which we encourage our colleagues to participate in, and we also take it outside the company through the events that we organize.
But is it how far are we? How much of work there has Mahindra done? Because I'm pressing you on this because I had a conversation from the Mahindra Group recently. Someone, a very senior person, and he said, "Anand, you'll be surprised the kind of work that we're doing here, where we want to grow and become a beacon for India to the world. But we also are very conscious about what he said, our carbon print, about how much we are going to contribute to the environment rather than take away from it."
Sure. So, if you look at our sustainability framework, you'll see right at the bottom is the approach, which is to give back more than we take. That's our journey. It's a long way to get to that goal, but we are making steady progress. In fact, one of our factories have been certified as being carbon neutral. In a period of 4 years' time, they reduced their footprint by 53%, which is much faster than any target that's been set for nations or companies. So even as we are making progress, we are conscious that it's still a long way to go. And our commitment is to be carbon neutral by 2040. And we will get there because the plans indicate that we have the actions in place to get there.
Fantastic. But let me just take this to Arvind, who's joining us. The biggest blame, Arvind, that is being made is that, forests are being replaced by concrete jungles. So how does an Ultratech cement turn around and come back and say, listen, we are also making sustainability possible?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Network 18, Anand and ABNV for inviting me to talk over here. Sustainability to me is actually meeting today's needs without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their need. Coming back to the cement industry, what you talked about, yes, a lot of concrete jungles are coming up. But at the same time, when we have to look at the sustainability, we should be looking at it from the whole life and whole value chain perspective. So what people do is, they just see that for cement, you just need to extract the limestone from the mines for which some jungles are to be cut. And that's finally the life ends at the building. But that's not the true story about it. You have to see the whole life of the cement, and you would find that in the whole life, cement has added a lot of benefits, or in fact, from a climate change point of view, a lot it has added to the sustainability. So buildings in the built environment itself, the most of the energy is consumed in the built environment. I can tell you the example of the Atal Tunnel. And the recently constructed Atal Tunnel, how much of carbon emission it has actually reduced. And, it reduced the travel time from 45 minutes to just 5 to 10 minutes. And because of that, a lot of travel time has reduced. Look at the Bandra Sea Link, what we have. Earlier, go back 10 years back, and we had to travel, if I had to travel from Bandra to, South Mumbai, I had to take a long route, and, a lot of emission would happen by that. So Ultratech is really proud, the Atal Tunnel, or for that reason, the Bandra Sea Link is built by the cement which we had provided. And if we look at, while definitely in the manufacturing phase, a lot of CO2 emissions happen, and that's why we have been seen as an offender. We contribute to the 7%, contribute 7% to the CO2 pool. But at the same time, when the same cement is used in the use phase, it avoids a lot of CO2 emissions. And so people have to see it in the whole life and whole value chain perspective. Then they will find that cement is actually a sustainable building material of choice.
No, because we are looking at a growth phase. We're looking at a growth story, Arvind. And, at that time, you're also looking at challenges which are going to come through. How are we going to make this possible? Because we need to build more, because we need to provide for more. But in the same time, we need to also conserve. And one of the key aspects in the cement business or the construction business is water. So how are you going to make it in such a way that and the other aspect is liquid cement, when it needs to be transported, has to be transported in a real time, and at a particular logistically it's a challenge. You have to have those trucks reach from point A to point B and in a particular time. Otherwise, that entire thing will just solidify inside the while in transport itself. So these are all challenges. And the role of water becomes important. So are you a water heavy, company, or are you trying to say, how is it that we can reduce?
Not at all. I can tell you my company, and we are 2.81 time water positive last year. And this has been validated by Ernst & Young. And this year, even we will improve further. We have ambitious plans of 6 times water positive. And what we are doing is, a lot of catchment areas have been developed within the plant itself. When we mine the limestone, we have actually converted it into a catchment area. So whatever rainfall happens, if you had seen cement plants, they are huge. More than 2,000 acres of land is there. And we channelize all the water 300, 400 millimeters of rainfall happens to this mine pit or the low-lying areas in the campus itself or in the nearby community. And by that way, and we don't, whatever water we require for manufacturing, more than 2.8 to 3 times of that we are actually harvesting. So we are 3 times water positive actually. And a lot has been done by Ultratech in water positivity.
True. No, that's fantastic, because we need people, our viewers, also to understand this, that there are companies which may on the face of it look like those which predominantly don't do much for the environment, but they're also very clearly focusing on these sustainable goals. Dr. Kumar, before, I think we're just going to have the Minister Gajendra Shekhawat join us in a bit, but I'll just quickly take your question, and then Ashwin, maybe if the Minister joins us, then I'll come to you after we speak to the Minister. But Dr. Kumar, one of the challenges for us is that we are a nation which has abundance of everything, but we do not use it well. We do not maximize the potential of every single drop of water. Let's just take water for example. Itna pani hai, but we don't use it well, and we've not been able to hold it also. Groundwater is one of our challenges today.
Yeah, before I go into the discussion, let me, as an environment science student, I would like to recall Mahatma Gandhi's quote that nature gives us for everybody's need, but not for greed. So nature has abundant. Unfortunately, the human being, in fact, the globe Earth formed in 4 billion years ago, and we came just 40,000 years ago, and agriculture, which came in 11,000 years to 10,000 years back. And it was in balance. It was in nice balance. We gradually started deviating from the nature from 1700s, basically from the European countries and their colonization, which started America developments, and then eventually they started emitting more and more GHGs. And in 1940s, there's something dramatic happened. The globe, when you see after post Second World War phase, when these colonized countries were liberated from all these European countries, and then the individual developmental aspirations started from each and every country, and then we started again from 1960s. When we had again, of course, third green revolution, which India's first green revolution, what we call. Then the amount of GHG emissions have really, I mean, the rate has been very steep ever since. So now there is the water. Water, India also receives per annum around 1100 millimeters of rainfall. And most of this goes into the sea. We don't really use them. And interlinking of rivers or major projects are major initiatives. But from agriculture point of view, which we have been advocating, is that rainwater harvesting in the farm itself, say farm ponds. And we also would like to have more of village ponds renovated or desilted, so that the water table in the groundwater table goes up. That's how we should take up. And when we talk about interlinking of rivers, we have some of the examples which we need to take forward, or we have to be cautious as well. Let's say, for example, Betwa and Ken River linking. It is proposed to have around 1.25 lakh hectares area under irrigation, additional area under irrigation, and it's most likely to happen with some. But we need to also study very well for other places. So, for example, wherever the downstream areas, when we are linking, possibly the problems may not be so much. But when we want to link the upstream level rivers, then the environmental flows will be affected, and then we will be having a big issue. For example, in Maharashtra, we have a large watershed program from 1980s, and we need to really study very deep actually what happened to those environmental flows, and why the Krishna River and some of these rivers are becoming now water scarce for major part of the year. So the water needs to be, water is very, very precious. If we are there, we are all made up of water. In fact, 80% plus is water. So we need to be careful.
Well, they say Jal Hi Jeevan Hai. I just have, I think, another 2 minutes before we have the Honorable Minister joining us. So, Ashwin, I'm just going to quickly bring in your, with AB InBev, and your role is actually sustainability and agro transformation, within the company. So let me ask you this. The business that you are in, you engage with the agriculture sector a lot, but you also are a water consuming business. Correct me if I'm wrong. So how are you making sustainability possible?
I think if I take a step back and try to think about why we are working on sustainability, it's a line that we have where we say that we want to embed sustainability in our value chain. And that's where we begin right from our raw materials. And then we look at how we are operating, and then we look at how we are taking our products to the consumer. So if you look at the entire value chain, agriculture obviously is the first piece, where we don't just work with the farmers for the procurement of the barley which goes into a final product, but we actually work with them throughout the year in upskilling them, in providing them probably access to information on the weather, or helping them utilize technology, a lot of which is there right now, what we call as IoT or Internet of Things, providing farmers access to that. and then sort of moving on to looking at our own operations. So when we look at our own operations, we are obviously consuming water. Water is the primary component in the final product that we have. So we don't just look at water efficiency within the plants that we have, but then we also look at mapping the aquifers in which we are present. So we look at which are the high risk watersheds in which we are present. And then we do a source vulnerability assessment there. And then we work with the community as a co-partner. That's where the partnership model comes in. So we don't just go to the community and give them a solution, but we go to them, talk to them, and ask them what is the solution that they want. And
Now,
that's
here's my
the
question.
partnership model.
Let me push you a bit, because it's barley water, right? So that's what they say. It's just carbonized barley water or aerated barley water. So don't have an issue with it. That's the joke. But I'm going to take that and turn it around and say, do you go to where the barley is, or do you now focus and say, where should the barley grow?
Okay, so there are two aspects to this. One is that barley traditionally has a growing area in the country, which is mostly the north and bits of central part of the country. I think it is very important because barley slowly and slowly is becoming like the secondary and tertiary crop behind paddy, wheat, and all of these other crops, which have been creating that system of monoculture. So I think the more the farmer also diversifies in that region, and the more the role that we can play to help the farmer grow different kinds of crop, be it cereals or other oil seeds or even barley, which is actually a sustenance crop. So if you look at the 1,200 farmers that we work with, they are mostly small and marginal farmers. And we intentionally go out and reach out to those farmers who do not have access to a lot of things around them, because we don't just want a final product for us, but we want to give back to the community without creating that unnecessary PR stunt around it. So it's the action which speaks for itself.
Okay, let's see, because one of the arguments is that in terms of crop manufacture, acreage, maximizing yield per acreage and also minimizing consumption of water per acreage. So that is something which is happening very actively across the country, which the government is also trying to engage with farmers, telling them you don't need to grow what everybody is growing. You grow what will grow best on your soil, what will grow best on your land with the minimum investment, and you'll get maximum yield. And that's something which they're working on very consciously. But I've just got the Jal Shakti Minister joining us for just a couple of questions, so we'll quickly go across to him. Joining us now is the Union Minister for Jal Shakti, and I really enjoy speaking to him, and we've been engaging with him across multiple issues, especially around water, through the course of the last year and a half, and he's been very encouraging and forthcoming. A pleasure to say hello to Gajendra Singh Shekhawat ji. Gajendra ji, Mantri ji, namaste. My first question to you as Jal Shakti Minister is going to be around what the government has been doing on what has been taken on a war footing, that is mapping of groundwater and aquifer mapping, but more importantly recharge.
धन्यवाद। हम सब जानते हैं कि पानी हमारे जीवन का सबसे महत्वपूर्ण विषय है। हम सब लोगों को इस बात की भी जानकारी है कि दुनिया में जो प्रतिशत दुनिया की आबादी में हमारा भारतीयों का है, और दुनिया में जो पानी, पीने का पानी उपलब्ध है, उसमें जो प्रतिशत हमारा है, उसमें एक बहुत बड़ा गैप है, 4% अगेंस्ट 18%। और ठीक वैसी परिस्थिति कैटल पॉपुलेशन की। दूसरी बड़ी चुनौती ये है कि हमारे जो पानी का कुल आगमन होता है, आवक होती है, उसका लगभग 80% हिस्सा जो है वो केवल और केवल बरसात के कुछ दिनों में हो जाता है। तीसरी बड़ी चुनौती की क्लाइमेट चेंज के कारण से जिस तरह से स्कैंटिक और इरेटिक रेनफॉल्स होने लगे और कुल बरसात के दिन वो कम हो गए, इसलिए हमारे साथ में बड़ी चुनौतियां और बढ़ रही। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इसीलिए एक बहुत बड़ा रिफॉर्म करते हुए पानी के सारे एस्पेक्ट्स जो अलग अलग मंत्रालयों में, अलग अलग विभागों में विचार किए जाते थे, जिन पर पॉलिसीज का निर्माण किया जाता था, उन सबको इंटीग्रेट करके एक मंत्रालय का निर्माण किया, जल शक्ति मंत्रालय। आपने जैसा पूछा कि हम एक्वाफर्स पर क्या काम कर रहे हैं, निश्चित रूप से दुनिया में सबसे ज्यादा अंडरग्राउंड वाटर का विड्रॉल हम करते हैं। हमारी लगभग 65% नीड्स maybe it is irrigation or it is for domestic purpose or for industrial use, वो जमीन के अंदर से पानी निकाल करके पूरा होता है। और लगातार दोहन के कारण से, and since underground water is an invisible source of water, दिखाई देता नहीं है, इसलिए उसको इन्फिनिट सोर्स मानते हुए लोगों ने जिस तरह से विड्रॉ किया है, आज उसका परिणाम है कि हमारे लगभग 20% ब्लॉक्स जो हैं या तो ड्राइड अप हो गए हैं या क्रिटिकल और सेमी क्रिटिकल पोजीशन पर। आने वाले समय में बड़ी चुनौती और भी बड़ी न हो जाए, इस दृष्टिकोण से हमने इस दिशा में बहुत तेजी से काम करना प्रारंभ किया है। सेंट्रल ग्राउंड वाटर बोर्ड जो पहले जमीन में पानी खोजने का काम करता था, मंत्रालय के गठन के बाद में हमने उसका मैंडेट परिवर्तित किया और उनको कहा है कि अब जमीन में पानी भरना ये हमारी प्राथमिकता होनी चाहिए, और उस दिशा में बहुत तेजी से काम किया। लेकिन जो भी काम हो वो साइंटिफिकली बैक्ड हो। इस दृष्टिकोण से एक्वीफर मैपिंग करना सबसे ज्यादा आवश्यक है। पुरानी जो पद्धतियां हैं, पिजोमीटर्स बनाते हैं, वहां एक्वीफर्स की स्टडी करते हैं, अंडरग्राउंड स्ट्राटा की स्टडी करते हैं, वो सब काम तो चल ही रहा था। अभी हाल ही में हमने मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ अर्थ साइंसेज की संस्था के साथ में एक एमओयू किया है कि अब हम हेलीबॉर्न टेक्नोलॉजी से जमीन के अंदर और जमीन के बाहर के जियोस्पेशियल डेटा को कलेक्ट करेंगे। जमीन के अंदर लगभग 1000 फीट से भी ज्यादा तक का एक्वीफर्स की मैपिंग और ओवर द ग्राउंड सारा जो है कंटूर सर्वे, ताकि हम इन दोनों को ओवरलेप करते हुए, जैसा माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं, घर का पानी घर में, खेत का पानी खेत में और गांव का पानी गांव में रोक सके, और आने वाले समय के लिए देश के अंडरग्राउंड वाटर की तरफ से देश को सिक्योर कर सके। इस दिशा में हम काम करें।
जी, लेकिन एक और आपका मिशन है, जब क्योंकि अब जल शक्ति की बात कर रहे हैं, तो एक रहा ग्राउंड वाटर मैपिंग, रिचार्ज और एक्वीफर मैपिंग। दूसरी बात है जो ये जल जीवन मिशन है, उस पर जरा बताएं कितना काम हो रहा है, बिकॉज वो लक्ष्य बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है हमारे लिए एज अ कंट्री कि हर घर नल और हर घर जल।
देखिए, जैसा मैंने अपनी बातचीत के प्रारंभ में कहा, जल जीवन का आधार है। 70 साल तक भारत की सरकार ने अपनी तरफ से प्रयत्न किए होंगे, राज्यों की सरकारों ने भी अपनी तरफ से प्रयास किए, स्थानीय सरकारों ने भी अपनी तरफ से प्रयास किए, लेकिन उसके उपरांत भी 15 अगस्त 2019 को जब माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इस मिशन की घोषणा की थी, उस दिन तक देश के 19 करोड़ घरों में से केवल 3 करोड़ 23 लाख घरों तक ही पीने का पानी पहुंचा। भी उसकी फंक्शनैलिटी को जब असेस कराया गया तो कई राज्यों में 20% के आसपास थी। इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर तो बन गया लेकिन पानी नहीं है, नल तो है लेकिन नल में जल नहीं है। और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने देश के सामने संकल्प व्यक्त किया कि हर घर में नल और नल में जल 2024 तक हम इंश्योर करेंगे। जो 16-17% का कवरेज था, कुछ जगह कागजों में, कुछ जगह धरातल पर। बड़ी चुनौती थी कि 70 साल में जितना काम हुआ उससे 4 गुना काम केवल 4.5 महीने में, 4.5 साल में पूरा करना। अगस्त में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने घोषणा की, तकनीकी सारी फॉर्मेलिटीज को पूरा किया गया, गाइडलाइंस बनाई गई। मोटे तौर पर अगर मैं मानूं तो 25 दिसंबर कट ऑफ डेट थी, जिस दिन माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जल जीवन मिशन की गाइडलाइन को रिलीज किया था, सुशासन दिवस के दिन। उस दिन से ग्राउंड पर काम करना प्रारंभ किया। 2-3 तरह की स्ट्रेटेजीज थी। एक, जहां रेट्रोफिटिंग हो सकती है, जहां पानी उपलब्ध है, जहां पाइप वाटर स्कीम गांव में उपलब्ध है, वहां रेट्रोफिटिंग की जाए, गांव को पूरा गांव में घर घर तक पानी पहुंचे, स्टैंडर्ड क्वालिटी का पानी पहुंचे, और साथ साथ में एश्योर्ड क्वांटिटी ऑफ 55 लीटर्स पर कैपिटा पर डे इतना पहुंचे, इसको इंश्योर करना। 25 दिसंबर से लेकर के और आज जब मैं आपको जनवरी के पहले सप्ताह में बात कर रहा हूं, 1 साल का समय। और 25 दिसंबर के बाद में आपको हम सभी जानते हैं कि जनवरी से लेकर के जो है कोरोना का खतरे की आहट सुनाई देने लगी थी, और 22 मार्च से तो पहले जनता कर्फ्यू, फिर लॉकडाउन, और फिर उसके बाद की परिस्थितियां। डेस्पाइट ऑल ऑड्स, मैं आज गर्व के साथ में ये बात कह सकता हूं कि जितना काम पिछले 70 साल में हुआ था, उतना ही लगभग काम 3 करोड़ 23 लाख कनेक्शंस थे, जिसमें मैंने कहा कि कई जगह फंक्शनैलिटी 20% भी नहीं थी। लेकिन मैं एक बार उस आंकड़े को मान भी लूं तो भी 3 करोड़ 23 लाख घरों तक जो पानी पहुंचा था, 3 करोड़ से ज्यादा घरों तक हमने 1 साल में पीने का पानी पहुंचाने में कामयाबी प्राप्त की। गोवा जैसा प्रदेश 100% के आंकड़े को छू चुका है, उनके हर एक घर तक, पूरे प्रदेश में हर एक घर तक पीने का पानी पहुंचा है। तेलंगाना भी लगभग ऐसी ही मुकाम को हासिल करने के लगभग नजदीक है। बिहार, गुजरात, हरियाणा, हिमाचल प्रदेश, ये ऐसे महाराष्ट्र, ये ऐसे प्रदेश हैं जो बहुत तेजी से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। लेकिन मैं एक बात कह सकता हूं कि नरेंद्र मोदी जी की सरकार बनने के बाद में अब जनता भी इस बात पर विश्वास करने के लगी है कि जो लक्ष्य तय किया है, सरकार उससे ज्यादा काम करती है, और सरकार उससे पहले, जो समय तय किया उससे पहले काम करती है। अनेक प्रदेश ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने अपने टारगेट्स को चेंज किया है। कुछ प्रदेशों ने ये टारगेट रिवाइज करके 2024 की जगह अपने लिए लक्ष्य 2022 का रखा है। कुछ छोटे प्रांतों ने, यूनियन टेरिटरीज ने 2021 के मार्च तक ही हम पूरा कर लेंगे ऐसे लक्ष्य रखे हैं। 2023 में अनेक प्रांत पूरा कर पाएंगे, और 2024 तक मैं विश्वास के साथ में कह सकता हूँ कि देश की माताओं बहनों को पानी लेने के लिए अपने सिर पर उठा करके पानी लाने के लिए बाहर जाने की आवश्यकता नहीं होगी।
बहुत सही कह रहे हैं मंत्री जी, लेकिन मेरा आपसे एक सवाल ये है, क्योंकि वीव गॉट अ पैनल व्हिच इज representative of the industry and also those who are working for this cause of making sustainability a reality. My final question to you, Mr. Shekhawat, is what is it that corporates can do? What is the role? क्योंकि सरकार खुद कुछ नहीं कर सब कुछ नहीं कर सकती. There is a lot of work that is being done, but what is the role that they can play and what can they do? Then I'll take that forward and back to the panelists.
देखिए, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी हमेशा इस बात को कहते हैं कि किसी भी बड़े विषय को यदि समाज ओन कर ले, सोसाइटी ओन कर ले, तो उसकी सफलता सुनिश्चित हो जाती है। और इसीलिए हम सब ने देखा कि माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने 2019 में सरकार बनने के साथ ही अपने पहले मन की बात कार्यक्रम से लेकर के, उसके बाद ग्राम पंचायतों के जो है मुखियाओं से बात करने से लेकर के, नीति आयोग में प्रदेश के माननीय मुख्यमंत्रियों से बात करने से लेकर के, इन सारे विषयों पर बात करते हुए, इन सारे अवसरों का उपयोग करते हुए जल की महत्ता और उसमें जन भागीदारी की उपयोगिता और महत्ता, इसके बारे में अवश्य ही चर्चा की। और मैं आज विश्वास के साथ में एक बात कह सकता हूं कि माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो पिछले 1.5 साल में जिस तरह से इसे अपने कंधों पर उठाया है, जल के विषय को, जल का विषय आज जन जन का विषय बना है। और हम सब देखते हैं कि आज सारे मीडिया हाउसेस, न्यूज 18 और नेटवर्क 18 ने तो कितना बड़ा मिशन पानी चलाया। हर एक मीडिया हाउस, हर सेलिब्रिटी, हर कॉर्पोरेट हाउस पानी के विषय में बात करने लगा है, चर्चा करने लगा। और बात यहीं तक नहीं, विद्यालयों में विद्यार्थी, छोटे छोटे बच्चे भी इस बारे में चर्चा करने लगे। मैंने तो कुछ ही दिन पहले एक घटना का उल्लेख भी किया था। एक छोटी सी बच्ची ने किस तरह से हवाई जहाज में जब उनकी माँ थोड़ा सा पानी पी करके अपने ग्लास को जो है ट्रैश में, डस्टबिन में डालने जा रही थी, उन्होंने हाथ पकड़ करके कहा कि ममा वी कैन नॉट वेस्ट वाटर, मोदी जी ने कहा है। जब देश में इस तरह की चेतना का भाव जागृत होता है तो निश्चित रूप से जो जन सामान्य जब इसके साथ में जुड़ जाता है, और इसीलिए हमने इस जल जीवन मिशन में भी हमने माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के मार्गदर्शन में इस विषय को भी प्रमुखता के साथ में जोड़ा कि ऑपरेशन एंड मेंटेनेंस गांव का जो है, प्लानिंग, ऑपरेशन, मेंटेनेंस, ये सब विषय गांव के लोग मिलकर के तय। और इसी के साथ साथ में आज तक हमने देश में सप्लाई साइड मैनेजमेंट पर काम किया। मैं केवल जल जीवन मिशन के परिप्रेक्ष्य में बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, सामान्यतः भी हमने कि कहां से अधिक पानी उपलब्ध हो सकता है, किस जगह को कहां से पानी आपूर्ति की जा सकती है, इस दृष्टिकोण से हमने देखा था। लेकिन अब हमने डिमांड साइड मैनेजमेंट पर काम करना प्रारंभ किया है। पिछले वर्ष ही 25 दिसंबर को सुशासन दिवस के दिन अटल भूजल योजना प्रारंभ की गई 7 प्रदेशों में, जहां सबसे ज्यादा भूगर्भ के जल की चुनौती है। वहां ये योजना एक पायलट के रूप में प्रारंभ की 6,000 करोड़ रुपए की इस योजना में।
Absolutely. I think we just lost Gajendra Shekhawat. Thank you so much. He's talking about multiple aspects of how we can make sustainability a reality. The government is doing its bit, but more importantly, that point that he said there, as closing comments, just quickly before we take questions from the audience, is that we have to make it a social issue. The moment it becomes a samajik cause, a social cause, and there is social consciousness about something, then automatically it will start showing real. It will start fructifying into something strong and concrete. I see it in schools today. Kids are perhaps the ones who are going to push it. The youth today are demographic dividend, as the prime minister says, and we all know they have to be more conscious about this. But how do you think we can do it? But we have the challenge of pushing a growth story of becoming a 5 trillion economy if we want to continue to be by 2030, while trying to maintain our ecological balance, our environmental consciousness, and nurturing what is our life source.
Well, we'll have to reinterpret what GDP is and the
Mm.
kind of growth that we want. And I think children are a powerful force who are, highlighting and shaping the way public consciousness is changing. You spoke about it in the beginning before the program started on how much of a change you're seeing in the way people are responding to sustainability, and the fact that more and more people want to champion sustainable lifestyles and sustainable production. And I think children are at the core of it, and they're a force. What is essential for us to remember is that um, we cannot hope for true progress if we do not focus on nature based solutions and ensure we work for true progress if we do not focus on nature based solutions and ensure we work together collectively and individually to bring consciousness and that understanding that all life on earth is dependent on nature, and there is a critical balance that we need to bring about, and it's only possible by by just bringing awareness to our consumption patterns and our production patterns. And I think what is most important to ensure the success of the goals, all of the 16 goals, is goal number 17, which is partnerships. Partnerships are everything. Without partnerships, I don't think any of the 16 goals will be achievable. But at the heart of those 16 goals, 17 goals, is climate action,
Yep.
and which is goal 13. So if we do not collectively focus on climate action, there is very little we will be able to achieve when it comes to all other goals.
True. Very well said there. And I also thank Gajendra Singh Shekhawat for taking out some time to speak to us. We couldn't speak to him at length. We just lost the connection there. But his intent is very true. Where his intent, and he's someone who's been working very, very tirelessly. And when there is intent, then there has to be a certain amount of, and it is followed by action. There will be some results. But my question at this point, as I bring it to the final leg of our discussion in this session, is that I'm going to go back to our panelists and ask this simple question. And let me take it the other way around. Dr. Naresh Kumar, let me ask you this. Uh, what do you think is going to be the single most point or aspect which we need to work on to make sustainability a reality, to become, you know, a carbon, to reduce India as a whole, as 1.3 billion people, we reduce our carbon footprint, but we continue to remain on the growth path?
I think the most important point is that we need to use our resources very well, particularly water and soil. So when it comes to agriculture, we need to have, as mentioned earlier also, that the farm level water harvesting ponds, and then we need to have the village level water harvesting ponds. Apart from that, we need to also have the micro irrigation systems put in place. Apart then, the nutrient use efficiency need to be increased. In fact, we use around 27, 28 million tons of NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizers, but our nutrient use efficiency need to be improved. And then now what we have, the available fertilizer urea is neem oil coated urea, which reduces the nitrous oxide emission, and therefore the global warming potential is reduced by around 10%, while increasing the yields as well, because the use efficiency also goes up. But we need to do beyond all these. The technology is there. Technologies need to go to farmers. But I would like to also tell that in India, as Diyaji also nicely put, that we have diverse nation. We need to learn from within. Within India, we have a lot of places where even farmers are doing very well as compared to the other farmers. And we have a lot of small holding farmers. 6.9 crore farmers are smallholder farmers. So now we need to address them by having not a very high-tech right now. Of course, they will be coming into high-tech later. But what our experience at the farm level indicates that even the line sowing of the seed, proper seed sowing, okay, even proper application of the fertilizers, irrigation when it is properly required. These are the things, and when the water is coming in abundance, how to get rid of that. These are huge challenges in front of the farmers. Those who don't have know-how or don't know how to do how, that is another issue. But with the availability of all these information technology, now we are trying to reach out. In fact, Indian Agriculture, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, in collaboration with IMD, gives weather-based forecast and advisories. They are being reached to the farmers. We need to do more. We need to definitely do more. Challenges are many. As rightly said, we need to have partnerships. Partnerships are the most important thing, that not only involving the society, but also involving the stakeholders at different levels of the value chain. So,
one of the things I think if we as a nation can do is restore the Gangotri Glacier back to those 19 kilometers that it's been pushed back, then that means we've been able to achieve some of our climate goals. That is something which even someone like Sonam Wangchuk also mentioned. But those are challenges. Those are for us as a country we need to do. But Ashwin, tell me this: what is it that you can commit on behalf of AB and InBev when you look at sustainability at 100 plus years? Because you don't have fields, you will not have barley. If you don't have barley, we're not going to have barley water.
Absolutely. Told my words. So I would look at it in two or three to now more and more start thinking beyond compliance, because many times for global organizations like us, our benchmarks are often much better than the compliance requirements itself. So I would say thinking beyond compliance would be the number one mantra. The number two would be driving innovation, because many times corporates, when they start getting big, they become like these elephants, which we need to avoid. And how innovation and transformation can happen is if we start tapping into the startup ecosystem also, which is there. And we've been doing a lot, and we've been seeing benefits out of it. Third and the final point I would like to say is that let's not think that sustainability is always a cost to our balance sheet. Often it's also a profitable venture. If you look at renewable electricity, maybe 5 years back, fossil fuels was much more cheaper, but now we are at a stage where slowly electric vehicles are coming in, solar power, wind power, it's all getting cheaper. So there is that aspect of profitability also which is there. So those would be the 3 points from my side.
True, absolutely. Can we make electricity with barley water? That's another chance, or a lighter weight. It's something that we're going to look. But there, those who talked about electric vehicles, I've got to go across to Anirban and ask him, what is it that the Mahindra Group is going to do to lead from the front? Because it's good to have electric vehicles, but you need electricity everywhere. You need batteries. You need
Anand, if you want one single umbrella direction, it is
Yeah.
to use economically feasible ways to live within planetary boundaries. All these solutions we are talking about, electric vehicles, renewable energy, value from waste, all of these help us stay within planetary boundaries. They enable economic growth, but they enable economic growth in a planet friendly way.
Yeah.
Within the Mahindra group, each vehicle that we make uses less than half the energy that was required 4 years ago to make this vehicle. In the Mahindra group, we have locations which do not take water from the municipality for more than 200 days in the year, because they do harnessing, they do recycling, and they have increased water productivity. There are 21 locations in the Mahindra group, including an integrated city near Chennai, which have been certified as being zero waste to landfill. And by not sending waste to landfill, whatever was being classified as waste earlier, we are creating value from now. These are all examples of how we can live economically feasibly within planetary boundaries. There are many, many more examples, but we will run out of time. There are
Yeah.
many things we can do individually, like Dia mentioned earlier, and we must take every single step of using water responsibly, of using energy responsibly, of not using plastic bags when not necessary, and so on, because we are all in it together and we are all part of the solution.
True, and two of the we are all talking to today to people who are from industries or from verticals which are quite water intensive. You look at Abhishek from Arvind, or even Arvind from Ultratech. So, what are the goals that Arvind has set? And Arvind, I will come back to Abhishek, and we'll end with Arvind, and then we take questions with the audience.
Sure. So yeah, you're extremely on the point there. So textile is one of the largest water consuming industry, and to that effect, back in 2014, we had taken a goal that by 2020 we will stop using any fresh water for textile production. So, and I'm happy to tell you that we achieved it last year with a lot of help and support from the municipal corporations here. So what we have done is we are taking the sewage water from Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar municipalities in Gujarat, and we are treating that sewage and using it for textile production instead of drawing water from the ground or taking water from the municipal supply. So we
Mm.
are tapped into these sewage lines, and that was the first goal. So we stop using any competing water. So fresh water is available for communities for agriculture. Our
Mm.
second goal is to see how we can make textile without using water at all, and we made a significant progress.
Wow.
We have just installed a technology in mid of last year, where at the time of pandemic, where we have started producing denim with a waterless dyeing technology. This is a technology which has only two such installations globally, and first one in India, one is in Spain, where you produce denim with 5% of the water which it used to take, or which it even takes right now in the conventional dyeing process. So innovation and technology is going to change the whole landscape of how we manufacture, and I'm sure it is also in other manufacturing industries. But in textile, we are looking at a completely different world when it comes to manufacturing within next 5 or 10 years. So in
Wow.
whole industry's impact will go down. We are going back to natural dyes. We are going back to dyeing, where dyes are produced by bacteria instead of being produced by chemicals. There are a lot of process efficiency improvement. We are generating a fraction of waste what used to be around 8-10 years back. So I think a huge lever is being pulled on to increase the efficiency with which industry used to operate, and now which how it will operate. And I think people who don't adopt this, they will automatically become non-competitive, because water saving or energy saving is directly linked to your bottom line, where we are
Yeah.
becoming more competent economically as well. And each
No,
of
very
these is
well.
also Yeah, each of these also led to economic growth. So you invest more in water recycling, you invest more in renewable energy. These are all linked to investments and new industries coming up to fulfill that demand.
No, that's fantastic. Just put it out at waterless denims, and then I'm sure we will, at least me and Dia will be one of the first to pick it off the shelf. The
Absolutely.
the the other thing is, like I said, I went to Hampi and I saw the temple there, the Vithala temple, and the chariot, which is also part of our currency note today, and the dye on it is vegetable dye, and it's more than 1,000. It's close to 1,000 years old, and it's still there. You can still see make the colors as vivid as they are. And it passed my thought saying that if they could get the dyes, vegetable dyes, which can last more than 1,000 years, why can't we have dyes which are natural and use it on our fabric and use it everywhere? You've just spoken about that. We're running out of time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across to you, Arvind, with one of the audience questions, so you can share your thoughts and also reflect on the audience question. Well, it says, is there a difference between CSR and sustainability? Is one married to the other, or are they homogeneous, or which is better to look at?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, Arvind, with your thoughts, concluding
Yes,
thoughts.
definitely. If when we talk about sustainability, it's an umbrella like Anirban said, and there are three dimensions of sustainability. The first one is, of course, the economic dimension. The second one is social dimension, and the third one is environmental dimension. When we talk about CSR, particularly, this is one of the aspects of social dimension, and talks about the community and community closer to your own operations. So the community which will be impacted by your operations or which is getting impacted by your operations. So you need to see that community is one of the stakeholder. And when I talk about sustainability, it's about creating value for our stakeholder. So when we do CSR, it's about creating a value for our stakeholder, one of the stakeholder, which is community, which is closer by. So
Right.
under CSR, we normally see how can we improve their livelihood, how can we improve the rural infrastructure, how can we have the social reforms being implemented in the community area. Those kind of initiatives we do take.
Hmm. No, fantastic. Let me also take this question. There's another audience question that's come through between Ashwin and Anirban. If you can take this together, what are the synergies needed between corporates in order to plan interventions and achieve sustainability targets that the country has set? What's worked well till date, and what improvements can be made? What are the areas where we can improve on? Anirban, do you want to start, and then Ashwin, you can tail out on this? Yeah.
Companies and our companies do. I mentioned that we 21 locations don't send anything to landfill. Now, some of these wastes can't be repurposed, so they are sent to cement companies, some of which are in Arvind's set of companies, for it to be incinerated in their plants because there are no emissions from that incineration. So this is one example of synergy, but there are many more. For example, waste material from one organization is repurposed into other material which a second organization can use. So within our company, our steel company produces waste, which is then used to make construction material for our construction company. These are just some examples. There are many more. In fact, our inspiration is a town in Denmark called Kalundborg, where they've hardwired wastes to go from one company to another company. We are trying to do that at the Mahindra World City. I hope we succeed because we want a success story within India of this kind of synergy.
But why should Mahindra do it only for their industry and their companies? Why can't Mahindra's industrial waste, which can be used to make concrete, go across to Ultratech and hardwire it that way?
Oh,
Arvind?
I'm absolutely happy to do that. It's just a start, and there is no reason why it should stay within the Mahindra group. The good news is that guys like Arvind and me and other sustainability officers are good friends. So we are quite happy to reach out and make this happen.
In
Good,
fact,
good.
we do, and you'll be surprised. Last year, we recycled more than 16 million tons of waste of various industries. Cement industry is seen as a scavenger. Municipalities or other industries, they do keep on sending there, and we have been helping them out.
Hmm. जो आए भेज दो, और कहीं पर differences हैं, then AB and Bev will provide the barley water to sort matters over, as we say, cheers. But Ashwin, tell me about it.
It will
So
dissolve everything.
the
It will
first point
dissolve everything.
first point was very important, I guess. Waste of one industry becoming input of another. I would like to add another dimension to this. A lot of our industries are present in industrial hubs and zones. I notice when we are doing a lot of our water projects, watershed construction, or working with the farmers, I notice we work in silos, and I think that is a big opportunity for us to tap into, because that's how we can magnify the impact. Because we are almost 8 or 10 different corporates probably in one district doing watershed work in our own way. So I would say that kind of collaboration in which you develop an entire industrial zone or develop a district, and that can again be split across industries. You don't necessarily need to be part of the same industry for sure. So I would like to add on with that point. That's a
Hmm.
big opportunity for all of us.
True. The final question, and Dr. Kumar, I'll request you. How can technology be used to magnify the impact of sustainability interventions?
Yeah,
Because yeah, go
yeah,
ahead. Because we
please.
just had the voice from this one, Abhishek from Arvind, talk about how they're using technology to improve. But can you give us more examples how technology can be used to magnify the sustainability interventions, Dr. Kumar?
For example, I can speak for agriculture. Some of the examples, if you take grape cultivation,
Hmm.
the 90 to 95 to 98% of the grape in India is under
Hmm.
drip irrigation. Grape
Hmm.
farmers also use a lot of decision support systems for managing the. They are all weather-based, weather forecast-based pest and disease forecast systems and decision
Hmm.
support systems, where they use them for managing their vineyards.
Hmm.
Similarly, we have some other examples like potato lead blight is being forecast
Hmm.
by the Central Plant Potato Research Institute, Shimla. We have such good examples
Hmm.
which are taking that say all the information and communication technology to the farmers. Now earlier we used to have that there is a constraint that what how to reach large number of farmers in very short period of time. Now we at even Indian Agriculture Research Institute we have developed the POSA M Krishi. It is a two-way communication mode uh, in partnership with the, of course, Tata Consultants Limited in one of the projects when we had. And then
Hmm.
the that sort of two-way communication makes two, three things. One is that the farmer is able to take a photograph in his farm and upload. It comes to the front-end workers at the institute, or it goes to the expert if need be. And then the time lapse between the actual visit and providing the
Right.
advisory is I mean reduced. So that's how the losses are being minimized. That is one thing. There are others also, like weather based information systems and weather based
Right.
yield forecast, crop management systems are being now becoming more and more important. In fact, that has been my major area of work. And
Hmm.
climate change is posing a lot of challenges to the farming community, and we work on providing these climate change impact assessments. And what
Right.
we find is, if we really do not adapt, then we lose the yields. And of course, Indian farmers are known to adapt to climatic risks, but
Yeah.
the speed of climate change is much faster than the adaptation. Therefore, the information transmission to the farmers is very, very fast nowadays as compared to the earlier. We also
Well,
have
and
several satellite technology being used to
right.
monitor some of the
Yes.
crop residue burning and so on. So, yeah,
Well, so it's got to be a marriage of the old with the new, as the
new,
MSS set it
yeah.
up, saying that we are a nation steeped in traditions and we're a station steeped in knowledge, which we can dip into to try and help ourselves be more sustainable. But we can marry that with technology and perhaps an attitude which is unique to us as a nation. That when we decide we want to do it, we'll do it and we'll do it well. We can do it better in a far more effective manner and perhaps in a more ecologically saner and friendlier manner than other nations can. So we've got to carry the load of 21st 20% of the world's population. But then this 20% can also tell the remaining 80%, this is how you do it. It's just about getting in that consciousness. Thank you very much. It's been a very, very engaging chat discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. So did our viewers. And we continue to keep having such discussions. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Anand. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.